Welcome and welcome to our show called Let's Talk. So today we have candidate for Senate District 18, Mr. Tony Godwin. He says a good win for Virginia.
Yes, yes.
Welcome. And would you like to tell us a little about yourself?
Well, thank you, Nina, for we finally got a chance to sit down and actually talk, and so appreciate you for inviting me to be here on your show today. You know, I'm a born and bred Hampton Roads native, right here from Portsmouth, and lived throughout the region, obviously from Western Branch all the way to the Virginia Beach oceanfront. And my wife and I were married back in 2000. Had a calling to come back home to Portsmouth and actually commit myself to do public service as well as a professional career in commercial real estate. And so that pretty much sums up what I've been working on for the last 30 plus years. And of course have a young daughter here at Churchland High School. So we're fully vested into our community, that's for sure.
Awesome. Well, I have a few questions for you. You ready?
Sure, sure.
Uh, okay. So, my first question: what made you want to run for state senate?
Well, as you probably have seen, is that a lot of my track record is being involved in the community. Like I said, I brought my wife and I were married in 2000, and I brought a longtime Norfolk girl from over there and to Portsmouth, and said this is where we need to be and do for our community. She does just as much as I do, as in some cases as well. But what made me run for state senate is to change the trajectory of how this community is competitive, how Portsmouth and Chesapeake, of course, now are competitive in the region, and more importantly, how this region competes on the national level.
Okay. Well, all right. So, your site says that for over 25 years, you have contributed to the quality of life within a community. Can you give us some examples of that?
Well, I listened to a good friend of ours that a lot of people know as Bernard Griffin, who was my shop teacher at Western Branch Middle School or Junior High School when I was there. That later on, when I started getting involved with the community, he said get on boards, commissions, and serve your community in a lot of different capacities. So not only being a member of the Business Association, but a two-time president of the Old Town Business Association, the chairman for the Chamber of Commerce Portsmouth Board, also serving 2 terms, and also a Rotarian here at the Portsmouth Rotary Club that is all about service above self. I've also been on the board for Oasis Social Ministry, and so I find myself where I'm doing for the community, not only as a contributor in volunteerism, but also most importantly the professional side of it as well. As I said, I'm a commercial real estate agent. That's what I do, and involved with a lot of opportunities that are helping bring back specifically the High Street corridor, because this is where my office is. This is where I do business. I have a small store right here on High Street as well. So I add that to my 25 years worth of experience in actually doing economic development that's good for not only for the neighborhood that I'm working in, but more importantly the entire community overall. I always like to call my philosophy in business as a win-win-win scenario, where if it's either in the real estate where I have a property owner and tenant, or a seller and buyer, it has to be a win-win situation for them. But more importantly, the third win is always the
Uh oh. Kind of froze. Okay, there we go. I apologize. Verizon has been acting up lately.
I think we're back.
All right. Okay. So, can you name some of the major problems the citizens in your district face and what you would do to help?
Verizon is definitely issues right now. I contemplated on
Yes.
actually getting on my cell phone instead of doing this on my desktop. But anyhow, so I think the next question you were talking about the major problems that our citizens in the district face.
Say that one more time. Uh-oh.
I think I completed that question you had for the 25
Okay.
years,
So my next
what I've
question
done in
was,
the 25 years in contributing to the equality of life in our
yeah.
community.
Yeah, you finished that one before Verizon said, "Oh, let's freeze." But um my next question was, can you name some of
Right.
the major problems the citizens in your district face and what you would do to help?
Well, again, it's all about economics. The new district is encompassing 90% of Portsmouth's landmass, but now that it includes a lot of the northern half of Chesapeake, it is the majority of the voters, and we feel like you can see a stark difference between the difference of Portsmouth and Chesapeake and its economic vitality. I will bring to the table a lot of the information that I've learned over the years and institutional knowledge to apply that and make sure that the citizens have good jobs, good opportunities, and obviously access to the quality of life that they're looking for. When it comes to businesses in their communities and thriving businesses that stay here and can compete regionally as well. So that's my firm commitment as far as doing what I do professionally and attributing that to what I can do in public service.
Thank you. Okay. So now, how do you feel about not taxing military retirement checks?
Well, being the son of a retired naval officer in the Naval Reserves, as well as he was a Vietnam veteran also. Um, I unfortunately was not able to serve my nation that way, but I do feel like that there are benefits when it comes to being military and retirees of military, and we're a military town. There's no question about it. Nor and Hampton Roads is influenced and has a lot of military here that contribute back into the community in a lot of ways. Um, we like to see the opportunity where military retirees actually stay here and raise their families and actually become integral part of this community on a regular basis, either economically or at the same time too being involved. But I think that as far as when it comes to military retirement checks and retirement income being taxed is somewhat of a double-edged sword. Again, as I say, there are benefits to being a military family, and I think that if there is a will to make it available to them to where that continues to serve them as they have served their country, I would be behind a program such as that.
Okay. How do you feel about ending property taxes on vehicles?
Well, what I can tell you from what I know is that um, vehicle tax or car tax is a term that typically comes around on election time, where it's a good talking point, but the majority of the revenue that the car tax actually is generated is going back to the localities. Um, Granted, the state it's a Dillon rule state, and the state has a way to basically tell the municipalities how to operate and stay within their means and so on and so forth. So I think that the car tax, there, if you take that income away from the localities, you're going to have to find a way to replace it, and then that's just a question of where do you shift that tax or where do you shift that income from. Um, I know as well as many do that the vehicle prices and values are skewed. The numbers are all over the board, and people are paying, or people have cars that are valued so much higher than they normally have been, just because of the sheer post-pandemic situation that we're faced with right now. So I think there are programs in place, and there is willingness through Commissioner of Revenues to adopt new formulas to make sure that we're not putting a huge burden on our citizenry that basically is not impacted as they are on everything else. That is, the cost of inflation is just skyrocketing to a point where people are just having to pick and choose what's going to be the most important bill to pay this month. And I think taxes, of course, on car taxes is one of those things that can be adjusted through a formula and offset in some way, shape, or form. So I commend the Commissioner of Revenues for doing what they do. Commissioner Profit in Chesapeake, and also Edmondson here in Portsmouth, I think have done an outstanding job on being able to ease that burden on the taxpayers themselves.
Okay. What is your plan for bringing more jobs to Virginia?
Well, let's face it, I'm again applying my 25 plus years of experience in economics, as far as with generation of job growth and development throughout Portsmouth, but also throughout the entire Hampton Roads region. This is where I live, work, and play, and also raise my family. So I think that, when I talk about out on the campaign trail about legacy jobs, I'm talking about businesses that were here, where family members and their sons, their daughters, their nieces and nephews were all coming to work at the same place. One, for instance, that was lost back in 2007 was the Norfolk Ford plant. It had been here since the 1920s, and just at a stroke of a pen was shut down, and those jobs were lost and exported out of the country, actually. And one in Portsmouth, not so far back in history, was Smithfield Packing, the hot dog facility right here on Airline Boulevard. Again, a stroke of a pen, picked up the plant, moved it out. So retaining businesses that create good wage jobs is important to my campaign. But more important to the families that put me in service to make sure that we retain those jobs, but more importantly, gain new jobs. We have to be competitive on a national level as a region, because places like Raleigh-Durham, which is just to our south, is full of technology. And with all the four-year institutions that they have, we have just as many or more here in Hampton Roads. We need to retain these kids that are coming out of these colleges with technology degrees, that they can actually work here in Hampton Roads and not have to go somewhere else. So I have a big focus on economic development and working with our partners at the Chesapeake Economic Development Department, as well as in Portsmouth, to say, how can we do things better to enhance businesses to come here, set up shop, and make sure that we're propelling them in 25 and 30 and 40-year plans to maintain their business, as well as maintain their level of job workforce that gives our citizens here in Hampton Roads and inside of District 18 those jobs that we go back to saying legacy jobs once again.
Okay. All right. So if abortion was brought up for a vote, what would that bill have to look like for you to vote yes to it?
Well, I would say, as a parent, and someone that would, back when my daughter was born, we would have had a tough decision to make, as my wife and I would have had. Thank God I didn't have to make that decision. My daughter was 5.5 weeks premature, and it scared us to death. And the doctors and the professionals that were taking care of us knew how to handle themselves, to understand if there was a decision to be made at that time, how would that look, and what would we have to do to save the life of my wife, which was, obviously having we were having to have our baby early. And so I'll bring some personal effects to that decision. 15 weeks is what we are talking about, up to 15 weeks, and that is I think the overall consensus of where we must stand to talk about not taking away the rights to a mother for personal for issues like saving the health of the mother and so on and so forth. So, but I would stick true to the 15-week abortion timeline.
Okay. The rising cost of healthcare for our older citizens is becoming a problem. What are your thoughts on improving it?
Well, when it comes to healthcare, everyone should have access to healthcare that's affordable and that can create a foundation of good health. I'm all about preventative healthcare, um, whereas to not be reactionary, because we know that also drives costs up. Um, but it's a shame to see that the rising cost of healthcare for our elderly is actually taking away simply something that they need the most at the time they need it the most, and it be not accessible for them. I think there is uh, many ways that we can look at opportunities to where they've obviously paid into a system just like they do in Social Security, that they've paid into a system that should be rewarding them. He's there to hone in on that. Medicare, Medicaid are both tools that are good for that, and we need to make sure that they're not only are they available, but there are also educational opportunities for people to know what services are available to them at all times. And I think there's a willingness uh, afoot to make sure that we cover all those bases. Again, you've got people at a time in their life that need it the most, and no one should ever go without the access to good health care at that age.
Okay. I attended a affordable housing conference where there seemed to be a disconnect between DoD personnel and the cities when it comes to finding housing for the service members and their families. How would you help solve this issue?
Well, again, relating back to my story of being a son of a Vietnam veteran and retiree, I think there truly is an issue at the larger scale of affordable housing. Anyhow, um, as markets fluctuate in the housing market, it'll obviously uh, eliminate the availability for affordable housing to certain people. But more importantly, the our military. So, with my experience in real estate, I can apply a lot of the tools that are necessary to make sure that we have sustainable housing. And quite frankly, I think out of the box a lot of times because I don't fit in the box. And so when I see projects such as this right across the street from us, done by the Wodo Group, that actually is workforce housing, that to me is a tool or an investment into a community. And they've actually seen so much success in their project here at Holly Point in downtown Portsmouth that they're building a second facility right down the street. And I commend our friends over there at the Wodo Group with Bruce Watts and his team to identifying a need, and first and foremost fulfilling that need. I think there is one thing that I can attribute to that is, in my world, time is obviously can sometimes be a deal killer when it comes to projects such as this, and costs, of course, continue to rise. So we need to make sure that when we have projects that qualify for filling a need for this community, either it be an affordable housing or workforce housing, that that the government needs to really get out of the way and make sure that if it checks all the boxes in the beginning, then don't make the project any more expensive or timely, that it can get the job done and get the product to the people that need it the most. Because let's face it, time is we everyone must meet the nature of time, and when you drag projects out that don't need to be drug out on the timeline, then what are you doing as a government overseer of getting projects on a timely basis? So I'm happy to say that they were able to get Holly Point done with some delays, but I think and some cost overruns that put it back in line. But it's true. It's been proven that they are a success at what they do, and I would support any and all opportunities to make sure that we have the right housing for the right people, and more importantly, our military here in town as well.
Thanks. Okay. So Dominion seems to be able to charge citizens whatever they like for something that is needed to survive, electricity. What are your thoughts on looking into what some consider price gouging?
Well, and it's funny, we had a conversation about this just yesterday with the former governor Allen. I had some really in-depth conversations, and we talked about Dominion's programs and what they do to specifically when it comes to new technology such as wind farms and the investment that's being put in here in Portsmouth alone. That a monopoly is a monopoly, no matter which way you look at it. They are the supplier of electricity for our communities here in Hampton Roads, and sometimes when there's competition, it drives prices properly. Uh, I would say, from the outside looking in and being a customer, just like anyone here on this call today, it's sometimes tough to pay that bill and say, did I get actually what I paid for? Uh, I want to look into it further from the other side of the equation. When being a senator here in Virginia, it's important for me to know that it's going to be a true win for the community. And so I would look at all the checks and balances that Dominion has in their pricing structure to make sure that we're not, first of all, having waste or any type of I guess you could say overpricing to cover waste and things of that nature inside Dominion. And I think the SEC is the watchdog in that regards. But the question is the SEC being watched as well, the State Corporation Commission? So these are things that I can only do from the inside, not necessarily as the customer outside. I do feel the pain just like everybody else does. In fact, having businesses and having multiple business accounts myself here in downtown as well as at home, those numbers seem to jump. And utilities, on the other hand, across the board, are sometimes out of control as well. So we need to make sure that we're getting everything we're paying for when it comes to services provided to us, water, sewage collection, and utilities here in the municipality as well as Dominion. But you're absolutely right. The only way I can do that is from the inside.
Okay. And my last question, if elected, what are the top three things you would hope to accomplish while in office?
Well, first and foremost, we have an epidemic in our streets here in Portsmouth as well as throughout our nation when it comes to crime. Crime is something that rings the bell to be the number one priority for a lot of folks, both community activists, as well as the leaders in our state houses and our city halls. As a victim of gun violence myself, when I lived down at the Virginia Beach oceanfront and was working out of my high school job at the Cavalier Hotel, I hate to hear a parent or a grandparent getting a knock on the door at 3 a.m. by police officers saying your son or daughter have been shot. and it's just because of reckless um, uh, crime and that is happening in our streets. We need to get a handle on this, and I'm a firm believer in tools that our law enforcement can use to get a grasp on what's happening now, and in our prosecution that simply takes care of the rest and get our streets cleaned up for our communities to be able to live safer and feel more comfortable in their communities, and save a lot of the kids that are actually getting um, shot and killed or robbed, and just do a better job as community leaders to make sure that they all have the tools to work with. Secondly, again, as I said, my background is in economic development here as a commercial real estate agent. I feel like, communities can only thrive with the right opportunities to thrive in. Again, there's a stark difference between Portsmouth and Chesapeake, but I think there's a lot of opportunity to work with these communities, the leaders that are running these communities, and do a better job for our citizens. Um, and if elected, we want to open up more opportunities for businesses to come in, create more jobs, create more investment for Hampton Roads as a whole, but specifically District 18 between Portsmouth and Chesapeake. That is what is one of my number one priorities, as well as the crime. Um, Add to that education, lifelong learning. A lot of people don't understand what that really means. We've got to have kids that are coming out of school, graduating with potentially associate's degrees with dual enrollment in Portsmouth and Chesapeake. Um, Career technical education. We've been talking about it for years. We had it back in the day, and we let it go and said, you go to a 4-year college, get a good degree, get a good job. But we've got trades that actually do better and make better incomes, and we're in so much need of career technical education. And I think Portsmouth and Chesapeake both are on a path to be not only doing well for their community, but the leaders in this country to show how it can be done, and how it can show these kids they have an opportunity waiting for them as soon as they get out of high school, or potentially out of a 2-year college here locally at TCC, or any of our 2-year colleges here in town. But again, those are ways that I believe are things that I can impact the most as a senator of a 1 vote of 40, and take that and bring it right back home to the citizens that put me in that office come November 7th.
Okay. All right. So that is all I have. Is there anything else you would like to tell the people?
Well, Nina, thank you very much again for allowing me to have the conversation with you here today. And I know that, I hope my passion shows through for our community here in Hampton Roads. I think it is important for people to know that there are options, there are opportunities for us to be able to grow and regain I guess you could say, a competitive edge throughout our region, and again throughout the nation here in Hampton Roads. I truly am a passionate person. In fact, a lot of people blame me for talking a lot about Portsmouth and my home that I live and work and raise my family. But I am truly passionate of being a part of this community and want to do more for it. So in November, and of course, early voting starts in September, either through early voting precincts come September 22nd, either at City Hall here in Portsmouth or down in the Chesapeake City Hall area. Or you can do Secure Your Vote Virginia, which has been set up to guarantee a transparent and an accountability to track the vote early and being on the permanent absentee mail-in ballot list. So I would encourage everyone to get out and voice your vote for someone that can bring you a good win for Hampton Roads and good win for Virginia. So thank you very much for the time there, Nina.
Well, thank you for bearing with me and my Verizon issues. And I appreciate you chatting with
Hopefully
us.
we got everything in. Yes, thank you
Yeah.
again. Thank you again for the time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.